When ideas become simple, our divisions become deeper. A situation where we look at those who disagree with us and see not opponents, not critics, but enemies. We, however, believe in complexity and the acceptance of the fact that multiple views can coexist. Join me, Mahesh, and my co host Ashia as we turn the kaleidoscope of life and explore the beauty of complexity and the power of different perspectives. Welcome to the Red Wheelbarrow. So, Asha, really excited to be here. First episode of the Red Wheelbarrow. It's been 6, 8 months in the working. Happy that it's finally happening. Thoughts?
Thank you, Mahesh, for inviting me to the show. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation with you. What I believe is podcast is a great way to dive deep into ideas, exchange thoughts, share experiences, and bring in a new perspective for our audience and our listeners. So, we're going to talk about a lot of things which include different ideas, complexities about ideas. And before we know more about what we are going to talk about, let us talk about the introduction because this is the first episode. Tell me more about your idea of the podcast, the Red Wheelbarrow.
Right, the name Red Wheelbarrow. There is a very interesting story behind why we chose this name, and it connects to a pivotal life changing moment in Ashia's life. This was when she went to Old Delhi and visited Aslam Butter Chicken for the first time. She went in, had the butter chicken, and she fell in love with it. So she came out and she fell in love with it so much that when she came out, she saw this handi which had 15 kilos of butter chicken and there was a red wheelbarrow right next to it. So she poured that entire 15 kilos into that red wheelbarrow and ran away with it. The red wheelbarrow still occupies a pride of place in our house. Wherever she goes, it goes with her.
Yes, wherever I go, the butter chicken goes with me because butter chicken is the love of my life.
Of course, that is an undeniable fact. But coming back to reality, it's actually based on a poem, The Red Wheelbarrow, by William Carlos Williams. The poem goes like this: so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. 8 short lines, 16 words, yet they hold an entire universe of meaning. This poem is deceptively simple, and yet beneath its surface lies an invitation to look closer, to pay attention to the details that we'll take for granted in our lives. The red wheelbarrow, if you actually look at it, is just an ordinary, everyday, functional object. But in that ordinariness, there is depth, there is history, there is a certain necessity. It carries weight, quite literally and metaphorically, shaping the world around us in ways that we don't always acknowledge or we don't make the effort to try to acknowledge. And especially today, we live in an era that demands simplicity, that pushes us towards quick takes and easy answers. A TLDR world, if you would like to call it that. And this is our satyagraha against a TLDR world, as we'd like to call it. Your thoughts on this, Asha?
Well, the moment Mahesh says TLDR, I at times wonder, is TLDR really making life less complex, like we say, and more simple? But isn't simplicity required in this world? Like, just as the poem, it's simple. We can actually picture a red wheelbarrow in a muddy barn, a farm behind. Maybe it's soggy or maybe it's a sunny day. It depends on someone's perception. And there are white chickens. But it's pretty simple. While we discuss about perceptions and reality, what we need to consider, acknowledge that there are complexities and there are multiple things that shape that perception. And what we are doing in this podcast is we are going to discuss those perceptions, those experiences, how it is complex, how it is different. And while we might agree to ideas, we don't always need to agree to them, because there's always a background to those ideas, how we think about it, what we think about it. We might all think about a red wheelbarrow, but in my head, it's a new red wheelbarrow. In Mahesh's head, it can be a rusty red wheelbarrow. So, the podcast is we're going to discuss similar ideas, yet talk about complex things that shape those ideas. What do you think, Mahesh?
True. Reality is never straightforward, right? Every idea, every belief, every perspective carries layers and layers of meaning that are shaped by people's experience, culture, and their history, like your history with Aslam butter chicken, Asha. And just like the wheelbarrow in this poem, ideas might seem unremarkable if you look at them the first time, prima facie, at a superficial level. But when we pause, when we examine them from different angles, their importance becomes undeniable. Which is why I think when we discussed this, we decided that we will do this podcast because we refuse to flatten the world into sound bites, into small bite-sized capsules of information that is actually thrust down people's throats in the name of simplicity. Over to you, Asha.
So, for our audience and our listeners, let me give you some context. Mahesh is a person who is really private. He does not believe in sharing his thoughts to public. That means, while I'm so thankful that he has an Instagram account for sure, but while having an Instagram account, he refuses to make a LinkedIn account. He refuses to have his thoughts on the internet. He refuses to make a Twitter account, because he feels that his words or he should not be on the internet. He likes to keep himself private. But here we are on this podcast. So, for our listeners, Mahesh, please tell them how and why did you decide to voice your thoughts for our listeners? Why did we create this podcast channel, and why the Red Wheelbarrow?
So, one of the primary reasons why this podcast did not happen sooner or in all these years is laziness. I am a lazy so and so, which you know well. But at some point of time, I saw the polarity and I saw the othering that's happening, how echo chambers are creating divisions in the world around us, and how simplicity has become the enemy. One of the seminal influences in creating this podcast was a talk by Professor Stephen Carter of Yale. And this was actually given in 15 years ago. This was given 15 years ago, and I saw it actually 15 years ago on YouTube. That talk has been with me throughout all the years. Every once in 2, 3 months, I pull that talk out and then I listen to it. And it's called Books versus Bumper Stickers. What Professor Carter says, he takes two examples. He says books which embody thoughtfulness, depth, and engagement, and bumper stickers which symbolize oversimplification, reductionism, and polarization. He quotes multiple essays, he quotes multiple incidents that happened in American history. The idea has stuck with me throughout of simplicity versus complexity. What is complexity to you, Ashia?
For me, complexity means different experiences. Complexities are the between in black and white. There's so much in this world. You can either be a left wing liberal or a right wing Hindu nationalist who believes in RSS, who believes in whatever is happening. So I won't get too much into the politics, but when we say something about extreme, there's always a question of what do you believe? Do you believe this and do you believe that? And the people who stay in between those thoughts, they're not really appreciated. People don't like those ideas and they tend to dismiss it. For me, complexity is in between. It's the gray areas, and within the gray areas, there's so many colors in between that we fail to acknowledge. I feel that complexity is something that we cannot define. Complexity is something that is always up for debate, and it is something that is personal, something that portrays reality, ground reality, and also it depends on how one person perceives it. Now, that perception can either be welcomed by the world or it can be dismissed. It also, for me, complexity is about how open minded you are to know what I have to say, or how open minded are you to learn about this world and know about different thoughts and different experiences. Mahesh.
Exactly. Professor Carter quotes two essays written by the American historian Richard Hofstadter. This is written in 1963 and 1964. One is called Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, and the other is called The Paranoid Style in American Politics. And he talks about how the politics of that time are actually driven, seem to be going towards a stage where they will be driven by slogans, applause lines, emotional appeals, and lists of people to hate. Does that seem familiar?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And can you believe how prophetic this was? 1963 is when Hofstadter is talking about it. And sometimes I think, while it was happening then, the same thing is happening in the TLDR echo chambers that we have today. And social media is adding on to it. Everybody has done this topic to the death. The point that I'm trying to make here is that probably, do you think this kind of politics, this kind of social media, this kind of polarization, do you think it is cyclic? Because if it's happening in 1963, it's happening in 2025. Maybe it's like the cotton prices, cyclic across different periods of time, across specific periods of time, actually.
I don't believe it's cyclic. I feel it has always existed, and it's about what people really tend to focus or want to focus on. There will be times when one news or something, a topic like this will emerge, and people will be totally engrossed in that topic, and maybe 2 hours or 24 hours later that topic will disappear. Now, interesting fact is that I come from a marketing background. I do this for a living, and what Mahesh is saying is that social media is one reason why we have come down to this TLDR world. We want everything in short bites. I mean, YouTube Shorts, when they introduced it, they only said that you can only add videos for 30 seconds. From 30 seconds to 1 minute, 1 minute to 3 minutes. Now they're planning to extend it up to 5 minutes or even more. So that's the thing. But do people really want to look at those reels for 5 minutes, or is it those 1 minute of short videos, 1 minute of extreme shift in our attention that we really have gotten a habit of? I mean, let's take an example of doom scrolling. If I am on my Instagram doom scrolling at 1 o'clock, am I doing that because I'm really interested in the reels or what is coming up on my Instagram feed? Or am I only doing it because there is some kind of a habit? There is unique thing. Every reel is different, every ideas are different. It's not that while you're looking for food channels like on YouTube, maybe you're looking at a food channel, how to make shakshuka, the next episode will be again an egg recipe. That doesn't work on your Instagram. You are seeing multiple different things. Once you might be watching a video that has something to do with a recipe, the next video can be about some accident that happened in another remote corner of India, and that somehow it emerged. And while we look at it, we don't really think about it. We don't understand what happened, what really went through, or what were the consequences of what happened. We tend to forget that. I'm pretty sure the next morning when I woke up, I won't remember whatever happened. Just before recording this podcast, I came across a news on Instagram where I saw the news of a plane crash that happened. I don't think I'll remember it tomorrow if there are no news channels covering that. And maybe I won't even remember it 5 days later that there was a just plane crash, and that's it. That's just how simple it is. We don't care about what happened, what really went into it, what was the cause, what happened to those passengers, how many passengers were there, what happened to their family. And it's about these things that we will explore even more. We'll deep dive. We will try to bring on topics that people feel or think that they care, but they tend to forget. And that is what we're going to force ourselves to do. We will think about topics, we'll discuss it, we will understand the consequences, we'll understand the complexities, and we'll let our listeners know what it is all about.
Fair enough, but I'd like to make a small correction there. I think we should be saying we will try, because if we're sure that we can do this, then we're making things simple. This
Exactly.
reminds me of this amazing book called Fahrenheit 451, which was written by Bradbury. Okay, that's a bit of a. I always have problem pronouncing that name, Ray Bradbury. Interestingly, Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature at which paper burns. He depicts a society that burns books, not because of government censorship, but because people reject complexity. They prefer simplicity and conformity. As the fire chief in this novel explains, books remind us of what fools we are. They lead us astray, challenge our beliefs, and make us uncomfortable. This is the enemy, and this is the enemy that we want to challenge in this podcast. And moving on, talking about culture and lived experiences, which form a, which are going to form a big part of our podcast. Asha, you've lived across half the golden quadrilateral, as it were. If I'm right, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, Delhi, Hyderabad. Tell us a little bit more about this entire journey. Tell us about the food. Of course, we will focus on Old Delhi food and your adventures in Aslam Butter Chicken Hotel. Is it? I mean, I don't know what they call. Is it the Aslam Butter Chicken Hotel or Aslam Butter Chicken Full Stop? But we'll come to that later. Please tell us about this half the golden quadrilateral.
It's not even half the golden quadrilateral. It's actually the full golden quadrilateral. For our listeners, let me tell you. So golden quadrilateral is the major highway project in India that connects four major cities, and that includes Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. So it forms a quadrilateral network of close to 5,800 kilometers. We know about our national highways. We tend to talk about, okay, if you're traveling by road, you might hear about people talking about which highway are you going to take to go to that particular area. And we talk about National Highway 1, National Highway 2. Let me give you a brief about what this route means. It means that the route starts from Delhi, that goes north to National Highway 1 until it reaches Agra, and then it turns south to National Highway 2 until it reaches Kolkata. From Kolkata, it takes National Highway 6 till Chennai, and finally from Chennai, it travels west to National Highway 8 until it reaches Bombay, and then back up to Delhi, taking National Highway 8. So that is what constitutes the Golden Quadrilateral. So to give our audience a background of where I come from, so I was born and brought up in Kolkata for close to 12, 14 years. I was born there, I was brought up there. So to know more about my background, I call myself a Bengali, and that is because my maternal family is Bengali. My father also comes from a complex background, so they are actually Marathi, but they were born and they grew up in Gujarat. So that is a complex relationship I have with Gujarat and the Marathi culture, but that is something I will go on later on. We'll talk about later. In Kolkata, I call myself a Bengali because I cannot think of my identity of any other way. I am a Bengali by birth. I have grown up in that place. I had, I still find it difficult to pronounce a lot of Hindi words. For example, khirki. I cannot pronounce that d word that comes with khirki or Syria. That is something that is because of the language. There's also food included. I actually learned to speak Hindi after close to 14 years, and that is when I moved from Kolkata to Gujarat, especially Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar. My first introduction to Hindi happened in a Hindi classroom where suddenly I was sitting with 40, 50 other kids, like super, and the teacher walks in and says Suprabhat, and I had no idea what Suprabhat meant at that time. And she started writing things on the board and she started introducing about that class. And I don't really know what my parents must have thought about it, because I don't think they really realized what was happening and the complexity that that included of me suddenly learning Hindi from Bengali, because my
And
second,
it's Suprabhat, by the way, not Suprabhat. Just saying.
like Mahesh said, see, it's the same issue. Suddenly that day I went home and I told my parents, see, I cannot learn this. These are the books that I have got from school. And I don't think I can do this. I do not even know how to write ka, kha, ga, gha or in Hindi. I learned it in Bengali. And if you, Mahesh, if you, I'm not sure how much you know, but the script to some extent might seem similar, but it's not at all. My Hindi language was limited to the movies and the cartoons that I have seen dubbed, maybe the Hindi movies, the cartoons on Cartoon Network, Pogo, that I used to come across, dubbed cartoons. And mostly I used to watch all these things in English. What had happened is that thankfully I had a teacher who was kind enough to tell me, okay, for 1 year we'll give Ashia the chance to learn Hindi from scratch. So I was handed over 3 books that kindergarten and first standard kids get. I was handed over a book, a stencil, where I could draw how to write ka, and that is how I started learning Hindi. And in 1 year, the teacher helped me a lot. I managed to learn, and
Which grade were you when you started this?
this was in 6th grade.
Oh, so you started learning Hindi directly from 6th grade. Okay.
Yes.
Now it all makes sense. Yep.
From 7th grade onwards, I actually dived directly. I took a plunge into the Hindi language. Trust me on that, Mahesh. My notebooks used to be red. It wasn't even blue or grey. It wasn't even the pen or pencil I was using. It was just red. I think I have stayed in Gujarat for another 12 years. I finished my college in Gujarat, and for my master's education was when I went to Delhi. That was the first time I went to Delhi. That was the time I was leaving. My parents moved out. Delhi actually is close to my heart. I am a Bengali and my favorite city is Delhi. If given a chance, I will go there any day, any time. It won't, I don't think it will matter how polluted the city is, how bad it gets when it comes to the heat or winter. I don't think I can tolerate extreme heat or extreme winter. However, I still love that city. My
So,
connection.
quick question there about your connection. You were talking about the pollution. You were talking about the fact that it gets really hot, it gets really cold. What about safety, as the safety part of Delhi?
For safety, okay. Now this is
Because
again.
as somebody who reads a lot about Delhi, being in South India, of course I travel around, but my perceptions of Delhi are again mainly based upon the news reports that come out. These talk about the pollution. These talk about I mean, of course, the heat wave and which is common across. But safety is also something that keeps popping up, right? When one talks about Delhi.
When it comes to Delhi safety, I feel that it is misrepresented, because I know where you're going, and when it comes to women's safety in Delhi, I quite understand the concern and what you're talking about. But let me tell you something. I have felt more safe in Delhi than I have felt in Kolkata. The amount of incidences and the kind of things that happens in Kolkata, and some things that I have personally experienced. I mean, someone randomly brushing their hand on your shoulder, someone trying to fall on you in local trains or in random footpath. Maybe I'll be walking in New Market in Kolkata and some random person will try to push me just and comment about my look or something. And you can't really fight back. You don't find it safe. I mean, it's not that you cannot, but it's that fear of what just suddenly happened to you. what did the person do? Should I fight back? Will there be any consequences if I fight? So it's like a flight and fight response of how a person respond to a situation like that. And I have faced multiple situations like this in Kolkata. Delhi, way less. Let me tell you, way less. When I say way less, maybe one or two incidences that I can remember, and that wasn't even in central city. So I used to stay in West Delhi in Tilak Nagar, which is very close to Rajouri. I stayed there for 3 years, and I have even come back home at 11 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. Where I used to stay in Tilak Nagar is actually Jail Road. I've stayed in Fateh Nagar, where a lot of these gurudwaras are present. So Tilak Nagar, Fateh Nagar is actually known for its Sikh community, the gurudwaras that are there. It is on Jail Road. Now, funny thing, it is Jail Road because the moment the road ends from Tilak Nagar, that is where the Tihar jail starts. That is the Tihar jail area. And because of the police patrolling, people coming in and out, I have felt more safe in Tilak Nagar, in central Delhi, than I have felt safe in the outskirts. So, this is not shame, not to shame any part of Delhi. I know a lot of people will find it as a personal attack, but I've traveled towards Gurgaon. So the road and the area between Mehrauli, right after Basant Kunj, the Mehrauli area, and then going till Gurgaon, cyber city, cyber area, the IT corridor of Gurgaon. If you travel to that, if you're staying there, it is fine. But if you go beyond that area, I've never felt safe. I have had incidences where someone kept walking behind me, kept following me, and it was a personal rule. I will always, so that is the NCR. To give you an area, Delhi, there is Central Delhi and there is NCR, which includes areas like Gurgaon, Noida, the other side, Ghaziabad, then Yamuna Par, like we call it, where Noida starts. So that is the NCR region, and down below that is Dwarka. The moment you walk beyond Dwarka, that is the NCR region, and that doesn't exactly fall under Central Delhi.
So this Yamunapar area is where the first season of this serial was located, right? Was it Patal Lok? No, I think it was Patal Lok. Anyway, please continue. Yes.
I have not watched Patal Lok, but it is that Sector 19, that one movie that came out in between about the girls, not the girls, about the children that were kidnapped and they were murdered and buried in a bungalow. We watched that movie together.
It was a series, right?
No, it wasn't a series, it was a movie.
Okay. Fair enough. So Yamuna Par, and we got a decent idea from that movie. If that movie comes to mind, I will again tell you the name as we're talking. But yes, so yeah, so what you're trying to say, what you're saying is that on a personal basis, you found a lot of Delhi actually to be safe for women to travel in comparison to, say, a place like Kolkata, and it is misrepresented. Fair enough. Which again, I think comes down to the lived experience of the person who's there in Delhi. It may not be as bad as represented in the media, which we know, again, echo chambers, which we've talked about a lot in the beginning. Moving on, Delhi food. Tell us more about the food in Delhi.
Delhi food is something that I cannot stop talking about, and I think we'll need another dedicated podcast episode about Delhi food where we keep talking about the food over there, starting from chole bhature and, of course, my favorite, butter chicken. So, Delhi has different varieties of butter chicken. The moment I say there is one kind of butter chicken that you find in West Delhi, there's another kind of butter chicken that you find in Jama Masjid area, that is the old Delhi. Different kinds of food, different experiences. What I feel, this is my personal belief, when it comes to certain food, chaat, chole, then kebab, chicken, mutton, I don't think any other city that I have been to, they have been able to beat what Delhi has to offer. I'm sorry to all the listeners who are from other areas in India, and you might say that Bangalore might have better kebabs and Hyderabad might have better kebabs. See, I'm currently
So let me ask you about the biggest competitor. Have you been to the Awadh area, Lucknow, where actually a lot of this the kebabs are amongst the most famous foods?
So I haven't been to Lucknow, but let me tell you, Delhi food is really influenced by the Avdi culture. So it's a mix of a lot of culture. It is a mix of a lot of food coming together, mixing and blending and creating its unique flavor of what we know. So Lucknowi, Avdi culture and Nihari, the Lucknowi Nihari is very different from what Nihari you get in Delhi. Talking about Nihari, again, one of my favorite places is Al Jawahar near Jama Masjid. It's the food gully that you go, and that is the first restaurant that you come across on your left hand side. Al Jawahar is the place where I was first introduced to Nihari, and I had no idea what mutton Nihari is. And my God, I do not think I can. Every time I have to go to Delhi, I need to have Nihari. I do not think that I will be doing Nihari a justice if I don't eat Nihari if I'm in Delhi. That is my love for Delhi food.
And
And
this is cooked, and nihari is cooked over 8 hours, 12 hours overnight, and then served in the morning, right?
yes, it is something that they serve in the morning. So while we're talking about Nihari, if you go to this one place in Delhi called New Friends Colony, this is where Jamia Millia University is, Zakir Nagar, and all those places. You will get some of the best Nihari in Delhi. To get Nihari over there, you need to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning to have that fresh Nihari that they cook overnight. And let me tell you, that is one thing that I haven't been able to do while I was in Delhi or while I keep visiting the city, and that is something on my bucket list to say. That is where you get your Nihari. But I do like to give a better idea of my Delhi experience, especially food experience. Let me tell you, or what I do every time I go to Delhi, and this is something that I keep doing. Recently, the last time I went there, and I never got a chance because that was an official visit because I had to meet certain clients. But if I'm in Delhi, I'll take out a day, and around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, what I would do, I would go to Old City, I'll go to Jama Masjid, I'll start from there. I'll sit over there till 6:30, hear the azan, and then I will walk out of Jama Masjid. I will maybe enter from
This is
gate
6:30 p.m.
This is 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
in the evening.
Okay.
Apologies, I had to mention that. 6:30 p.m. I'll sit over there, and then I would enter from gate number 2 or 1, and then I would exit from gate number 3 of Jama Masjid, and then I will walk my way up to that lane where Al Jawahar is present. That whole lane where, if you take the straight road, that is where maybe 500 meters up to 700 meters on the same road, you will have Aslam butter chicken. So what I tend to do is that I would walk down that road. The first restaurant I will get inside is Al Jawahar, have nihari, khamiri roti, have a few kebabs, and that used to be my usual thing. I would have one khamiri roti, two plates of nihari, enjoy two pieces of kebabs, and then I will get out. Then the second spot where I will go is I will walk back that road, and I will go and have kebabs from the famous kebab stores that are out there. And I don't want to name it because I know the kebab stores are also, it's like competition, which kebab store do you like? But I know the audience who are in Delhi, they will know which kebabs I'm talking about. It's the Sikh kebab, the famous Sikh kebab, chicken or mutton kebab. I take one full plate of kebab, and that means there are, in one plate there's close to 4 to 6 kebabs. And these are big pieces, and they usually offer it with rumali roti, which I don't take.
So when you say 4 to 6 kebabs, is it so Sikh kebab, if I'm right, comes from the word sword, or so therefore Sikh kebab is the one that is served on skewers, right?
Yes.
It's served on skewers. So are you talking about 4 skewers of kebabs or one skewer with 4 kebab pieces?
No, 4 to 6 skewers of kebab.
And each skewer contains how many? How many
One
pieces?
long piece of kebab.
Okay, one long piece of kebab. So, okay. Oh, that's not a lot at all. That's not a lot at all.
That is nothing. That is for starter. That is just your appetizer. And
No, no, that is not my appetizer. That is your appetizer. I cannot complete more than one and a half of that. But yes, please proceed.
And see, this is not me eating alone. This is usually me going out with some friend. So we're sharing that one plate. So after one round of nihari, one plate of nihari and one khamiri roti, I will move on to round two. And my round two involves maybe 3 pieces of kebab from Qureshi's kebab. And now I have named it because I could not resist it. Qureshi's kebab, 3 to 4 pieces of kebab. I prefer mutton over chicken over there. And then after eating that, I will go back inside that lane, the lane where Al Jawahar Hotel is there. I will go back inside. I will go to Cool Point. Now, for our listeners, they know what Cool Point is. That is the famous place where you get Shahi Tukra. Now, Shahi Tukra is in essence a bread pudding, but if you have to see Shahi Tukra that you get in Kashmir, the Shahi Tukra that you get in Lucknow, and if you even Google Shahi Tukra, you will find pieces of bread pudding, and that's cut into nice cut out pieces. But when you go to Old Delhi, there's this huge container. It's not even a container, it's something where they are actually heating up the bread pudding, and it's always hot. And you have this.
We actually have something very similar in Hyderabad. It's called double ka meetha.
Yes, it's very similar to that. It's this huge container that is heating. You can see the bread layers on that. You can see the ghee. My God, the ghee, the kind of cholesterol. You look at that container and all you will think about is cholesterol, but then you will not be able to resist what it contains. So what people tend to do, they tend to take one small bowl of Shahi Tukra. It's like a lumpy bread pudding. It's not nicely cut out. It doesn't have that finesse that you will see on Google. It's a lumpy piece that they tend to mix with rabri. So what my friend does is she or he, whoever I'm with, they tend to take Shahi Tukra and rabri, or they tend to only take Shahi Tukra because it's
Okay, for the benefit of people who don't know, what is rabri?
Rabri is a milk pudding.
Wait, is it rabdi? And it's because you can't pronounce the.
Now I know where you're going.
Is it rabri or rabdi?
So only you can tell our audience what the actual pronunciation is.
Yes, that's what I thought. It's rabdi.
Yes.
Please.
So that is what we have, and it's extremely sweet. Now let me give you a sweet skill. I am a Bengali. I love rasgullas. If I'm in Kolkata, my usual time to eat rasgulla is 8:30. When I know that the sweet shops near my house will be making fresh rasgulla. So those
This is AM again.
No, this is PM. 8:30 PM.
Okay.
8:30 PM, fresh rasgullas, warm, in the chashni, warm chashni, and you get that soft, spongy pieces of rasgulla. And I can eat 4-5 of it effortlessly, just like that. That is how much I can take sweet. Shahi Tukra is very close to rasgulla chashni. You're basically getting a bowl of chashni. Top it up with rabri, which is not so sweet because Shahi Tukra tends to overpower rabri sweetness as well. What I do, I go a step ahead. School Point is also a place where you get mango ice cream, nice, very unique flavored local mango and vanilla ice cream. What I do, this is my order. I go to the guy, I tell him, Shahi Tukra, Rabri, एक mango ice cream scoop or एक vanilla ice cream scoop. So it's more or less like a ramen bowl. I think that is exactly what Mahesh is trying to imagine in his head because that is how he's looking at me right now. It more or less looks like a ramen bowl, and yes, I am over exaggerating. Full of Shahi Tukra, full of rabri, 1 scoop of mango ice cream, 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream, cold ice cream, and underneath is hot Shahi Tukra. And that is how I end my food tour in Old City in Delhi. That is how much I love Delhi food. If I take any of my friends and they say that I cannot eat it anymore, bahut ho gaya, I can't have it anymore, I say that okay, no problem. You can walk down this lane, You can do a parikrama of that place 5 times, or you can decide to go and puke in one corner, then come back and eat. Because if you are not eating it, then you are not just doing justice to Delhi food. You need to eat.
Fascinating. And for anyone who's listening, everything that Ashia is saying is not exaggeration in any form or fashion. I know for a fact that I think 6 or 8 months ago, Ashia was in Ahmedabad and she and her friends went to this restaurant which serves pani puri. And between them, they had 100 pani puris. 100 pani puris. And I'm not kidding. This is a true story and it actually happened, and that is Ashia's appetite, and which is why I keep asking Ashia about her food stories, her food experiences. She can put it away like nobody's business.
Like, okay, now let me justify that 100 pani puri pieces. It wasn't a restaurant. So Ahmedabad is again a unique place for chaat. It's a dry state. Mahesh, I keep joking about this. It's a dry state, but the kind of food that you get, it's like touchings and chakna food.
So just for the record, touchings is what chakna is called down south, especially in Kerala. Touchings is chakna that you have with a glass of alcohol. Touchings on the side.
And then the kind of food that you get in all over Gujarat, it's not just Ahmedabad. You get talk about the snacks, talk about the chaat, the kind of things. And recently, what has happened is that we have seen multiple of these small dining spaces. They have tried to turn it into a fine dining experience, but what they're selling is unlimited pani puri. Like seriously, it's crazy that you get to enter that place after paying 100 rupees or 150 rupees, and you walk in per head. This is 100 rupees or 150 rupees per head. You walk in, and what you get is unlimited pani puri. Plus, it wasn't just pani puri, Mahesh. I told you what all we have. There was pani puri, there was idli, there was dosa, there were Manchurian, there was upma, there were noodles,
Hold,
and
hold, hold, hold. Wait. Is this on the menu, or was this the stuff that you guys actually consumed?
this was on the menu, and this is also something that we consumed.
Obviously, it was on the menu. That's when you will get it. But you consumed all of this.
Yes, we did.
How many of you? 10 of you?
Two of us.
Oh,
So between the two of us,
it's too bad the people from the Guinness Book of World Records weren't there.
so the two of us had approximately. We know it is 100 because they don't count. It might be 80, it might be 90, but I remember they gave it to us in a basket. The pani puris were given to us in a basket where you hold vegetables. So if you go to a local market, vegetable market, you can see a lot of vegetables are kept in a small handed size basket, and a lot of Indian families would keep those plastic basket where they keep potatoes, onions, and other vegetables in one corner of their kitchen. That is the kind of basket they used, a plastic basket. And again, this is not an over exaggeration. They did not fill it up to its brim, they actually made a heap out of it. It was a nicely looking mountain where you had lot of pani puri, and I remember eating some 60, 70 of those, even more than that, because after 50 I was counting. Till 50 I was counting. After 50 I told my friend, I'm eating the 50th pani puri, and I remember still consuming it, and I had lost track of how much I ate. So if you have to compare how much both of us had, it probably would be close to 100 or 140 pani puris that we consumed that day. On top of that, what we saw is, let me tell you, this is unlimited buffet. If you ask them to get you more pani puri, they could have gotten us more pani puri. And at the back of that restaurant, there was a buffet where they were serving idli, where they were serving freshly made idli, freshly made masala dosa, varas, and there was one container where they had kept warm chow mein. It's not even noodles, it's chow mein, veg chow mein. There was another container where they had veg Manchurian. Then they had dessert, they had gulab jamun. So it's like all you can eat. And what did we do? We went there for pani puri because that is what we were craving that day. It's another story. I'll tell you the story later of why we ended up going there, but that is what we ate, and then we found all these options. So why not eat it?
Fair enough. I don't think there can be a more logical statement than that.
It was
When you
there,
say,
so we had it.
exactly, why did you climb Mount Everest? Because it was there. Exactly.
I think this is the same logic and same. If you have to make it as an excuse, this is the same logic people use. Why are you climbing Everest? Because it's there. So Mahesh, enough about me, enough about my food experiences. I'm sure the audience will get bored of how much I can eat and where I have gone and eaten what. Tell our audience about who you are. Give them an idea of where you come from, where are your roots, and what is your experience. So if I have to say that my experience across India was across the golden quadrilateral, tell us about your experiences with state highways, because I know you have been across different areas in India. So tell us about your state highway experiences.
That's a very interesting question when you ask me as to who am I? That is something that I've been struggling with the last 50 years of my life. I still don't have an answer, but in terms of my experiences traveling across India, I've been to almost all states, most of the states in India. This was because in my childhood, as I was growing up, my father used to get transferred. He had about 14 transfers in 11 years or 12 years or so. And we used to move from state to state. There were metros, of course. Bombay was there, Bangalore was there, Chennai was there, metros, as in big cities. And there were also small villages where I used to stay. There was a small village called Palavancha in erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. There was a small village called Jafrabad in Gujarat. There was a small village in Kerala called, then it was a small village called Chalakudi. This was when I was in school. This is when history was news, as I like to say. And each of these places carries a distinct memory that sticks in my head for me. For example, in one of the places where near Surat, where my father used to work, there was a place, and I used to visit my where my father used to work. I used to visit the plant. There were trees, and there were a lot of weaver birds. And I distinctly remember sitting there for hours and watching these weaver birds construct these nests. And the complexity of these nests was unbelievable. One of those had fallen to the ground, and I picked it up, and I remember wondering, how come a bird can construct something like this? I mean, if you go look up a weaver bird nest, you will understand the complexity with which the fibers are woven, the entrance, and then the hollowed out part of it where it lays its eggs, etc. It's an amazing construction. It's an art piece, actually, a work of art. And architecture, it can actually withstand most forces of nature, unless you include natural disasters, etc. uh, all of this was not something that I knew then, because I was pretty young. But I remember actually wondering, how come something so complex can be constructed by such a small bird? That was my association to the other place. Jafrabad had another association. As you know, now I eat non-vegetarian food. Jafrabad, at that point of time, coming from a South Indian Brahmin family, at that point of time, we were not used to non-veg. As in, we were not used to non-veg in the sense it was not there at all in our menu. In fact, non-vegetarian was not in my menu till the age of 28. And Jafrabad was a port. It was a coastal area. What used to happen is that people used to dry fish, what in Tamil is called karwad. What is dried fish in Hindi?
I'm not sure what you call dried fish in Hindi, but in Bengali it's called shutki. Shutki mach.
Shutki mach, karwad, dried fish. There used to be frames in which the fish was strung, salted, and they used to be left there for weeks together till they became dry husks. And what happened is that what happens every day is that there is the sea breeze that comes in the evening, and the smell of the fish used to come in. The entire village used to be redolent with the smell of dried fish. For us, it was something that we could not tolerate at that point of time. At least for me, it was. I mean, my parents, me, we found it very difficult to tolerate. I remember we used to wet towels and wear them as masks because we found it difficult to handle the smell. So that's kind of where all these different places that I grew up, the different people that I met, all of these experiences have shaped me in some way, in some manner, to actually become who I am today. And if I had to go into this in detail, then it would require one full episode or maybe two full episodes. So I'll stop there. And you were actually talking about something about education.
Yes, so there is this very unique experiment. It's called a thought experiment that Mahesh and I were discussing in between. So, what he has termed it is called the IIT double blind test. So, Mahesh, please tell our audience what that thought experiment is.
And just for the record, to anyone who's listening, our conversations will not necessarily segue very smoothly from one topic to the other. We will pick random topics as they pop into our minds, but they will still be around the foundation of complexity and what the red wheelbarrow stands for, the IT double blind experiment. And I was thinking about this, and so here's the thought experiment, right? Let's assume that right now, I think the total intake of all the IITs put together in India is 17,000 students. Let us assume that it doubles. The capacity of the IITs is doubled. Now, remember, this is a thought experiment, and anything is possible in a thought experiment. So it becomes 34,000. And 17,000 students take the JEE, which is the normal mode, and they enter IIT. And these people are the control population. And then there is another 17,000 students, a batch of 17,000 students. So we take an arbitrary number, say 5 lakhs. 5 lakh students who have passed 12th standard are interested in taking IIT, in joining IIT. And these 5 lakhs are selected through a randomized process, totally randomized, statistically randomized process. And then again, through a further randomized, the next step, randomized 17,000 students are selected out of these 5 lakh students. So the point here is that the selection is totally randomized. These 17,000 then join, this is called the test population. So the test population then joins the control population in IIT.
So, Mahesh, just to let our audience understand and fully get a picture of what you're trying to say is that there are two groups, Group A and Group B. Group A are the students that came into IIT, that maybe get admission into IIT through the regular admission process, that is the JEE, considering their scores, their interview, the regular process. On the other hand, there is Group B. Now, Group B consists of random students who have passed their 12th standard and who have expressed interest to join IIT. So, what you are saying is that you are going to consider these group of students, pick them up randomly and get them into IIT. So Group A, the JEE, the traditional format, Group B, non-JEE and non-traditional approach. And both of them come in together in a same institution or within the same classroom.
Exactly. Same institution and in the same classroom. Now, they will be together in the same classroom. The people who get into JEE will be allocated whichever department they want. based on the current conventional IIT method of giving them their departments. The other 17,000 who are coming in will be allocated randomly again to each department. And each class, of course, we could also allocate them according to their wishes, but that may not be possible. But let's assume, for the sake of this thought experiment, that the remaining 17,000 are also allocated departments in a random fashion. So, example, if it is materials and metallurgy, half of the class will be group A and half of the class will be group B. Now, and group B, that is the unconventional, as you call it, what I call the test population, will join the control population, group A, in the class, and they will study together. One very important condition in this thought experiment is that group A will be under the assumption that group A, or the people who are getting in through the normal JEE process, will be under the assumption that the entire class has gotten in through JEE. The second group who got in through this lottery system, as it were, will then be part of the same class, but they will be under the assumption that everybody has gotten in through a lottery, right? The entire class. And for the entire 4-year period, all the entire class will not know that they have been selected through two different means. Thought experiment, remember, anything is possible in a thought experiment. And then at the end of 4 years, we take a measure. Let's assume, again for the thought experiment, that a test exists which will measure the quality of the output of the students, right? When I say quality of measurement of the students, measurement of quality of the students, it means a test exists which will measure them across multiple parameters which are relevant to what they should have received in terms of knowledge, expertise, critical thinking, ethics, etc., etc. All these facets are, the test will measure them across all these facets. And when we do this across the entire population, I wonder if there will be a difference in the measurement of the test population versus the measurements, the quality value of the control population. To simplify that, we measure all these qualities in the test population, and then we measure all these qualities in the control population. In my head, there may be a small difference, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in terms of the quality that they're going to possess when they come out of IIT.
Now, this is very interesting for us to know. And since it is a thought experiment, it is so ideal that no group A or group B, they don't get to know how they were selected and how they came into the institution. Just imagine all these group of students sitting together, having their lunch, playing, studying together, and then never discuss how they got into it.
Exactly. That is one point, and another very important point that I forgot to mention is that they will all go through this identical process in terms of pedagogy, in terms of the hostels that they stay in terms of the facilities that they get in the IITs. There is no difference in whatever experience they go through and the knowledge that they receive in these IITs across this four-year period. It's going to be exactly the same. Sorry, please go ahead.
And also, it is very interesting because now students don't know how they came in. Just consider the amount in real life. I know this is a thought experiment, but in real life, the amount of clash in ideology of how you got into it. I mean, consider the system of reservation. The clash that happens in a classroom of how you got into the thing. You are eliminating everything. I know this is a sensitive topic, and uh, people might not want to discuss too much because it takes an ugly turn. It often takes an ugly turn, but that is the reality of the current IITs. It's not just the IITs, it's the entire education system. But in this ideal scenario, what I find very interesting is that you are exposing, what you are doing is you are offering equal opportunities. Now, when I say equal opportunities, I am eliminating their background, the student's background, where they come from, what their name is, because okay, let us get consider the practicality of it. In India, everything is extremely either the segregation or of communities or cultures is often done through names. Through your name, people can identify your caste, they can identify your religion. And what you're doing is that despite all that, you're offering equal opportunities to all these students, therefore equal opportunities. And if I have to consider the outcome of what happens, it will be very interesting to see. What I believe is that there won't be, again, I agree with you. Even I don't think there will be much differences because the teachers are same, the environment is the same, the food they're eating is same, the classes they're going through is same, the resources that they're getting access to is same, the amount of mentoring hours, if I have to say, from professors or from seniors, everything's going to be the same. So I feel is that if we eliminate and if we give an equal platform, I feel the results or the outcome will be the same. Unfortunately, in the current system, the acceptance rate into IITs is way lesser than the acceptance rate in Harvard. And that is very interesting. And that is the reason people tend to go out in the US universities rather than studying in India.
One quick point there is that two facets to the thought experiment. One is what you're talking about, which is equal opportunity across, which is agnostic of socioeconomic and other backgrounds, right? Or rather, background agnostic totally. The other is whether a system like IIT JEE actually makes a difference in picking candidates who in the future will actually go out and make a difference. I don't know how else to phrase this, but I think for the time being we can use does it really produce quote unquote good engineers? That's also another facet. One is, to summarize, one is equal opportunity because it's background agnostic. The second and equally important is the selection process. How does is the selection process actually helping in
Or
creating better output in terms of the students when they graduate?
or if I have to put it in another way, is the selection process even fair? And does it really acknowledge the different kind of backgrounds, the different kind of education structure, the different kinds of uh, background? When I say background, it includes family background, economic background, it includes the background, the community background the student is exposed to. Is it even fair to have that centralized system to get students into IITs? Because what I feel that all of them are very different. All of them come from different backgrounds. All of them are exposed to different regions.
But in that case, I mean, there is a lot of affirmative action which happens in terms of reservations, which we both agree is totally required because we are bleeding heart liberals at some level, and we will not let that perpetuate into the podcast as much as possible, though. But my question then would be: would it actually be possible to create a entrance test where you can cater to all of these different intersections that come in a student's life? I don't think it's actually possible.
You're right. It might not be completely possible to make different tests to understand the capabilities of these students. But at the end of the day, what we're discussing is that are these are the IITs really producing good engineers? Or if I have to frame it in another way, are the IITs really producing or churning the change makers of this country? If I have to put it that way, if these are the brilliant students and the brilliant kids that are coming out of the IITs, are they really the change makers that are changing India? Are they really so good engineers that are coming out? What is it that IIT is doing?
And how do you think we can actually measure this?
Uh, Measuring has to come through research. I'm not aware of any research uh, in the current academic system that is doing a longitudinal study, or that even want to experiment, that let us take a test group. Let us consider what happens if you take students randomly who have expressed interest to join the IITs. And it will be interesting to see, can we really do a research study? Is there anyone out there in India in the academic system who would like to do a research study, something like this, that is a longitudinal study? And even if they do, what will be the outcome? That will be really interesting and really meaningful. But my fear is, who is going to do this research? And is it really going to get accepted? Is this proposal even going to get accepted? What do you think, Mahesh?
So, interestingly, there is a study on gifted children which has been running, a longitudinal study which has been running in the US for, I think, about 70 or even more years, which is called the Terman study, TERMAN, the Terman study on giftedness. So, there are studies that run outside the India on subjects like giftedness. But coming back to the specific IIT question and whether such a study can actually happen, my answer would be no. For one primary reason, funding. Nobody, I think, is actually interested in putting money into such a study. A, because of the amount of time it would take. When will you say that you will stop that study? Will you keep on continuing? Do they need to be change makers in 10 years? Do they need to be change makers in 20 years, 30 years down the line? The amount of time, effort, and money that is required for this kind of a study, as important as it is not something that people will be willing to shell out, is my opinion. The second part of it is why I think people will not be interested in such a study is that it is self defeating. It is self defeating no matter what the outcome. A, if you prove through the study that IIT is producing the change makers 30 years down the line, 20 years down the line, they become change makers, then it is just reinforcing the status quo. Right. So what we have been doing is right. I mean, do you actually need a 30-year study to decide that what you've done is right? And the second, if it's proved wrong after 20, 30 years or 5, 10 years, whatever the case may be, that would actually cut the system down at its very knees. And it would actually show that what we have been taking for granted, what we have been doing for so many years, has not been yielding the results that we think it has been yielding. And I don't think this is a risk that people would be willing to take.
And what you told me is that a similar study is happening in the US. Uh, Here, what we tend to do, the moment we talk about education system, the moment we talk about research, all of us tend to look outside of India of what is happening, and we tend to take that example and figure out, why can't we do something like this in India? And something like this is not happening in India because, like Mahesh is saying, and it's actually a two-edged sword. Either you are reinforcing that status quo, or you're really burning down the foundation. But despite what the despite all of this, what is very interesting for me to know, when you say maybe 20, 30 years down the line, is IIT really producing the change makers? Is it really creating that change makers? Maybe within this thought experiment, let us add that within this institution, an IIT, however group A, group B, however they came in, they were exposed to the same conditions and they produced particular output. And let us consider, as a part of this thought experiment, that the output was equal throughout, even within the JEE students, without the JEE. Both these groups, the students, they have actually uh, yielded great results, great engineers. And now these engineers are coming out in the real world. Now consider this fact. Now, right now, within the same thought experiment, they are now trying to enter the real world, which is functioning on bias. How do we even fix that bias? For example, their names. Is there going to be any kind of bias to where they apply? Because there is study. Again, let me talk about this one study, which is interesting, distinct, and our listeners can look at the study. The name of the paper is called "Are Emily and Greg More Employable Than Lasika and Jamal?" A field experiment on labor market discrimination in the United States. What the study found, so this study was done within the time period of 2000 to 2002, 2 years. What this has done is that as a part of this field experiment, researchers examined the level of racial discrimination by randomly assigning identical resumes. So these resumes had black sounding names and white sounding names. So when I say black sounding names, these are the African American communities. White sounding names are, I don't think I need to give any more explanation of what white sounding names sound like. And they tried to observe the impact on request for interviews from employers. Very interestingly, results found that resumes with white sounding names received 50% more callbacks than those of black sounding names. Now, turn this in an Indian setting. In an Indian setting, it's not just about black and white. There are multiple complexities come in. One is caste, very important. In India, we are still a caste-based society. We cannot ignore. That is the ground reality. Second, religion. Third, your background. So just by your name, people have a bias of who you are or where you come from. In the Indian context, Mahesh, just pick a random name.
Ashutosh.
Ashutosh. Okay, let me give you another example. Sakina. If Ashutosh and Sakina are applying for the same job with the same equal kind of experiences, same kind of achievements, similar achievements, similar looking resume, both are from IITs, from the same experiment. They
In
are
other words, their resumes are identical.
they are the same people. They are.
So let's simplify this a little bit more. Let's create two identical resumes and paste the name Ashutosh on one and Sakina on the other. So now you have two resumes. Only difference between the two resumes are the names.
Other names
Right.
and the bias.
Right.
So what will happen in the Indian context? What will happen the moment recruitment bodies or departments get their name? What kind of bias are they going to go through? What kind of bias are they going to experience? Because if you go out, every person is unique. Their biases are unique. Their biases are all shaped by the experiences or where or how they grew up. How do you think, Mahesh, is it going to affect these students? Do you really think just because they have received equal opportunities inside, they are going to be the change makers because the real world is going to give them the equal kind of opportunities? Because if I'm saying it right.
See,
Change makers, to be a change maker, it's not just the education. There are multiple things, chances, opportunities, resources, tools. Do you think they're going to get that?
it's a very difficult question to answer. It's a complex question. First of all, there is the fact that once they leave, they go into a competitive world. That competitive world holds some things more important than other things. It could be the grades that they've got in their whatever degree they have. It could be a composite picture that they're looking at in terms of the grade. They may try and measure their attitude in their interviews, multiple facets that they look at. The name, of course, is something that some people might find as a source of bias. Gender as a source of bias, which we even see today in the employment in India and across the world. If you actually look at it, I don't think there is a one size fits all sort of explanation that we can arrive at as to how equal opportunity can be provided to people once they leave the halls of academia into the real world. That is a complex question I think we should talk about on another episode. And with that being said, this episode ends. Thank you for joining us.